Christopher Paolini, our guest, he is an author, a novel writer. Have you ever written nonfiction?
I've written some articles and essays, but I find them difficult to write because when I write fiction, I'm using the voice of my characters, and that gives me direction. But when I'm writing nonfiction, it's like, whose voice am I supposed to use? And that always, for some reason, gives me trouble. I'm not very good at nonfiction.
What is the link between the links between the books? In other words, so I finished the first one. I finished Aragon. Now you want me to go on to Eldest. How do you make me want to do that?
Hopefully the story will do that itself. Each of the books, of course, is self-contained to a certain degree, but each one is part of a larger continuing story.
An epic saga.
An epic saga, but that said, if you have not read, for example, the first 3 books, you can very easily pick up the last book and dive right into it. There's a summary of the first 3 at the beginning of it, and you know, you can enjoy it just as well on its own as you can in conjunction with the first 3.
Right, so as we go from Aragon to Eldest, Aragon and his dragon have saved the state or something. They've done something good. They've saved the rebel state.
Yeah. Well, they're
destruction.
In the midst of a great struggle between, between the freedom fighters and the evil king Galbatorix, who they're up against.
Galbatorix, what a great name.
Actually, it's a real name. I didn't make it up. Well, I partly made it up. It's from some Celtic sources, and Galba means big, and Torix means king. So he's literally the big king.
Okay, and he's the cruel ruler of the empire, right?
Yes.
So he's very cruel, and now Aragon and all of them have to travel around, and then we get into Brissinger.
Yes.
Which means fire.
Yes.
And what happens there? I know you aren't going to give it all away, but...
Well, Aragon has to learn a lot more about who he is and what he can do, and faces some very difficult moral choices. You know, the thing about these books is, even though they are fantasy, and they have a lot of fun adventure and humor and battles and stuff, but it is a classic coming-of-age story, and the characters, all of the characters, face a lot of very difficult questions along the way. Questions of, why are we here? What are we doing? What's right in life? How do we serve our friends and our duties? And you know, it's questions we all deal with. And I think that's part of the reason that these books have appealed to not only younger readers but older readers as well.
Which is the secret. J.K. Rowling got that too, that you can read Harry Potter when you're young and you can read Harry Potter when you're old.
That's right. Well, and honestly, I think that if you write fiction that doesn't deal with those questions, then you're writing fiction that doesn't really deal with the real world anymore.
Sure.
Even if it is fantasy.
Even if it is, but as we were listening to Dr. Samantha Nutt about what's really going on in the real world, in the world of contemporary war, we need to read about victories and hope.
That's right.
Yes.
But also, and not ignore the costs of those victories and stuff. And that's
lots of loss, heartbreaking loss.
Well, you can't write a big saga and have everyone be happy all the time.
No.
That would be incredibly boring. But I also like to think that the books aren't incredibly depressing either. So you try to strike a balance between hope and, of course, worry for the characters.
So in Inheritance, are you trying to get rid of the evil king, or
oh yes, it's the big confrontation.
What's going on? The big confrontation, and we won't tell the ending.
No. Although I will say that of the 4 books, I am the most proud of Inheritance.
Why?
I think it's the best book I've ever written. You know, I started writing when I was 15, and the biggest disadvantage at 15 is your lack of experience. And I have learned a lot since then, both professionally and personally. And I was able to put all of that to use in the last book. So I think it's the best book I've written, and I'm very proud of it.
So the turning points in Mr. Paolini's life have been, obviously when you're a young boy, you read and read and read. I'm thinking, who did you read?
Oh, I read the Anne McCaffrey series the Dragon Riders of Pern series by Anne McCaffrey. I read the Redwall series by Brian Jakes. I read Tolkien, of course, and the Mabinogion tetralogy by Evangeline Walton, Dune by Frank Herbert, the Gormenghast trilogy by Mervyn Peake, the Worm Ouroboros by E.R. Edison, the Pit Dragon trilogy by Jane Yolen. I could keep going here.
Yes, you could.
So reading had a huge influence on me, but I think the big turning points for me were, 1, when I started writing Aragon, 2, when I decided not to go to college and to pursue the self-publishing.
Accepted at college.
I was. I was going
to Reed College, or
Reed College in Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon. They said, "Please come here.
They did.
You're smart. You're talented. Come and be part of us." And you said,
"Well, I wanted to go, and I was going to go, but you know, I had the orientation papers on my desk, but it was a choice between going or finishing and self-publishing a book I'd been working on for 2.5 years at that point. So I said, and it was a horrible choice because I knew I was at a crossroads in my life, and if I went one way, my life would be completely different than if I went the other way. But I decided, you know, I decided that I could always go to school, but I couldn't always self-publish the book. So I did that, and then I'd say the other big turning point is where I am at the moment, because I've spent 13 years working on this series, and I grew up with it, and now I have finished it, and I'm very excited to have it finished, but at the same time, it's a big change to be moving on to new things.
I'm sure, and the new things are?
Well, I have actually gotten 20 to 30 completely new books plotted out over the past 10 years.
Oh, only 20 to 30?
Only 20 to 30, but they're in all different genres, fantasy included, and I just have to pick one and write it next. I think I'm going to do sci-fi next, but...
Really? Not true crime?
That's later.
Later.
That's later.
So the genre is pretty much sci-fi, fantasy...
Mystery, thriller, horror, historical fiction, romance, you name it, I'd like to try.
What about screen adaptation? Have these been optioned?
Well, Aragon was made into a film a few years ago with Jeremy Irons and John Malkovich and Robert Carlyle. It was pretty fun. And it is
John Malkovich? Come on.
Meeting him was a treat.
I bet.
You know how sometimes actors are very different from the characters they portray? He seems to be one of the few actors who it really is kind of like you know, how he seems on screen.
He has to be.
But
flying through the tube of life.
That's right.
Or whatever he does.
But and actually, he actually was in Montana at one point. I think he actually worked as a firefighter or fire jumper in Montana at one point.
No.
Yes.
Before movies?
Before movies.
He did, eh? Well, you know, the Fondas are there and the Bridges are there, and some of the movie stars.
In any case, it's possible there may be some more films made from these books, but at the moment, I don't really have any. I can't really say anything more than that at the moment.
Okay. Bet you can't, or Random House will be calling you up again or emailing you again. So your sister's in this, isn't she, in some of these? Isn't she the herbalist in here, your real sister? She was inspiring to you? Oh,
yeah. Well, I mean, when I wrote the series, I tried to have fun writing it because I figured if I had fun, the readers would have fun. So I based one of the characters on my sister, Angela. And fortunately, she has a very good sense of humor about it, or else I wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Do your friends say to you, am I in here?
A few of them have.
I think I'm on page 300.
A few of them have. Well, I haven't based other characters on anyone else directly.
Okay.
Although I think there's a bit of my father in the character of Brahm, the wise old mentor in the first book.
You always need a wise old mentor.
That's right.
Yes, you do. Now, why are the page numbers on the side?
You know,
it's very cool, but they're in the middle of the page.
That's right. That was actually a design decision from Random House. When Aragon came out, they wanted to sort of make the whole package of the book sort of stand out a little bit.
Right. Well, it makes so much sense. Instead of doing this, you're like flip through and you can find page 725 like that.
Yeah. Actually, one of the cool things about the design of these books is that when I was writing Aragon, I'm a big fan of art. In fact, I did all the interior art for the books. I did the map and I did the dragon. I did.
So you're a cartographer on top of all of this?
Well, I try to have fun. It's right at the beginning there.
Yeah, this one I saw.
This map and then the dragon eye. But in any case, when I was writing the first book, I named the valley where Aragon grows up Palancar Valley after an artist I admire called John Jude Palancar. Without knowing that and without consulting me, Random House chose him to paint the covers.
No, kismet.
It was just amazing.
Synchronicity.
Amazing.
How fabulous. Maybe you can write a book and call it Charlie Russell. Who knows? I thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Christopher Paolini, Inheritance. His event is sold out tonight at Our Lady of Perpetual Help. Isn't that a great name?
It is a great name.
That'll be in a book one day. Who knows?